Watch this.
Giving money back to Idaho taxpayers will always get some attention at the State House. But how much of a rebate can the state sustain? Apparently, a lot more than Governor Little thought would be a good number weeks ago.
We walk down the hall and he sees one of his favorites and he's just like, oh.
Is there anything more comforting than a lapdog? Well, we stopped by for a visit with one of the greatest lapdogs who doesn't realize he's too big for most laps. Now that you've had enough time to recover from your New Year celebration, how about ringing in another New Year? Thousands showed up to welcome the Lunar New Year this weekend. The year of the snake, in the land of the snake. River, that is.
I'm hopeful that we'll get everybody to stand up and say how much they love this bill, and we'll all vote green, and then we'll be able to go to lunch.
Well, not everybody did stand up to say how much they loved this bill, but it did pass overwhelmingly, and then, of course, they did go to lunch. Only 11 Republicans stood up to applaud House Bill 40, but all 63 voted for it in what House Majority Leader Jason Monks called the largest of several tax cut proposals this session. This one is worth $253 million, and it does three things, or it would do three things. It would reduce the flat income and corporate tax rate, which is right now at 5.695%. It would drop it down to 5.3%. That would give us a tune of $240 million back to taxpayers. It would also give a $12 million tax break to veterans and their pensions. It would also eliminate the capital gains tax on gold bullion. Of course, with those 7 no votes from the Democratic lawmakers, the question was 2 to 3-fold. If the governor said in his State of the State he wanted to see, well, about $100 million in tax rebates, why are we proposing several bills that would add up to about $400 million this session? How are we going to be able to pay for our growing population and required services, they wanted to know. Secondly, who is benefiting the most with this tax cut? The top 20%, they said, according to Democratic leaders, and not the average Idahoan, according to the Idaho Center for Fiscal Policy.
The average Idahoan family making between $55,000 and $92,000, they're getting a whopping $127. That's maybe enough to buy a couple of tanks of gas. And if you're lucky enough to be making $150,000 a year, you can get $264. This bill is not going to provide the kind of tax relief that your constituents are looking for or going to think that they're going to be getting.
Well, House Republicans pointed out because Idaho has budgeted cautiously over the last several years, see the $1.4 billion in surplus, this tax cut is not only warranted, but even, well, with it, the state's basic needs are covered. House Bill 40 now, again, passes 63-7, heads over to the Senate side.
You know, if there's no ID, I don't think you should be able to get a ballot, vote, and walk away. It's a loophole that's ripe for fraud.
And one might wonder, if something was ripe for fraud, one might wonder why we haven't heard about the juicy details of that fraud happening. That lack of evidence of fraud hasn't stopped Nampa Senator Brian Lenny from bringing back another attempt to get rid of one of Idaho's means of voter identification, the personal identification affidavit.
Because right now in Idaho, you can show up to the polls and vote with no photo ID. I know because I did it last year, test out the system. And sure enough, you can show up, no photo ID, and vote.
And well, because PICS or it didn't happen, Senator Lenny then posted about that, the affidavit, to his Twitter page on October 29th, after apparently taking advantage of another Idaho allowance to make voting more accessible. That would be early voting. And that's a heck of a signature there, Senator Lenny. All I had to do was sign this piece of paper saying, I swear I am who I say I am, Senator Lenny posted. Hope to get rid of this affidavit process next year. I already have the bill drafted, he wrote, which is easy to do when you just copy and paste the same bill from 2 years ago. Senator Lenny's Senate Bill 1049 is almost identical, word for word, almost a carbon copy of the bill Republican Representative Joel Alfieri sponsored in 2023. That year, there were 2 attempts to get rid of the affidavit option for Idaho elections. The first one never got a hearing, but Representative Alfieri's bill did, and it was killed on the House floor.
You could significantly change an election based on people who are ineligible to vote. The affidavit is just wrong. We require identification for so many aspects of what we do in this society. It is beyond the pale that we should allow people to vote without proving who they are.
Well, as was pointed out that day on the House floor, if ineligible voters can sway an election, the inverse is also true. If you deny the right to vote to someone who is already registered, and to register they do need a photo ID, and they are turned away because they forgot to bring that ID, well, that could be seen as voter suppression. But let's go back even further. Any idea how long Idaho has required an ID to vote? Only since 2010, when all you needed to vote before that was just your signature. No identification. You just had to sign your name next to your name in a poll book to say, I am who I say I am. Well, we apparently began losing faith that year because that session, Representative Mike Moyle got his voter ID bill passed, which required an ID to vote, but it also included the option to sign an affidavit for those who mistakenly show up to vote without their driver's license. Again, signing something to say you are who you say you are.
Also new this year, if you don't have proper ID, you won't be turned away. Instead, you can fill out a personal identity affidavit.
And it's just a statement that they're declaring that they are, in fact, who they say they are, and listing their current address. This is to help ensure that everybody that goes to the polls can either vote and/or register and vote.
Well, 13 years later, that's why the idea to get rid of that affidavit, House Bill 137 in 2023, failed to get past the House, and it died 33-61 with one absent. This idea of keeping people from their right as an American citizen.
That there are certain individuals within our state that lean towards the more elderly side who may or may not have a driver's license at this point in their life. They don't have a form of photo ID that's available to them when they go to cast a vote. So are we saying that those individuals, because they are no longer driving, should no longer have the ability to vote?
I haven't heard from a single prosecutor, I haven't heard from a single clerk that we need this kind of legislation to secure our voting process.
All right, first, no driver's license, no problem, because that same year in 2023, they kind of closed that hole. Lawmakers made it so Idaho's Transportation Department, they had to issue a no-fee photo ID for the purpose of voting. And they did that when they got rid of the student ID as an option. They did that later in the session. But here's the thing that you heard Democratic Representative John Gannon bring up 2 years ago, and what should accompany any legislation introduced in any year at the Idaho State House. What problem is this bill trying to solve? Are voter affidavits a problem? Senator Lenny's seemed to work, seemed legit. And as was said 2 years ago during that House floor debate, Nampa's Republican representative at the time, that'd be Kenny Roten, as he pointed out, Canyon County has never had a personal identification affidavit overturned, ever. And as we learned today, in Ada County, the state's largest county when it comes to population, Ada County also has never had an affidavit overturned. And Ada County had nearly 272,000 voters last November for the general election. You know how many signed an affidavit? 426. 426, that's it. Statewide, there were 1,200 out of the more than 914,000 voters. That's less than 0.2%. So again, the question is, what problem is this bill trying to solve? Ripe for fraud, according to Senator Lenny? 0.2%, no cases of illegal signatures in 14 years? Doesn't sound like a seed has been planted, much less fresh fruit ready for the picking, right? Regardless, Senator Lenny's bill, his identical bill from 2023, is waiting for a hearing in the Senate State Affairs Committee. All right, there's more than just legislation going on at the State House and around the 208. Hunter Funk tells us more in today's 411.
It's great news, and we'll take that news every day of the week.
An Idaho Army National Guard Black Hawk helicopter found and rescued 3 adults and 1 kid who were missing in Owyhee County since Friday. The 4 hunters left Friday to hunt for the day, but then they didn't come back. Thankfully, they were all found alive and safe near Little Jacks Creek Wilderness just hours ago.
Specific judges, federal judges, have opined that the firing squad is actually faster and more humane.
And apparently a House committee thinks so too, because after testimony on both sides, the bill making the firing squad the primary method of execution instead of lethal injection now heads to the House for a full hearing.
The president does not have the power to confer immunity from state crimes, period.
But the House still passed the joint resolution saying Idaho doesn't recognize former President Joe Biden's federal pardon for Dr. Anthony Fauci, which means Dr. Fauci's pardon doesn't protect him from state crimes and punishments, which is already part of the Constitution. Now the resolution heads to the Senate. A local advocacy group, Idahoans United for Women and Families, filed a lawsuit against the state of Idaho over ballot initiative language. The group says the current ballot language is misleading and doesn't fully represent their proposed Reproductive Freedom and Privacy Act. Their proposal would protect women's ability to make personal health care choices, including decisions about pregnancy and birth control. The group wants the Idaho Supreme Court to review and clarify the ballot language before the 2026 vote. Today, businesses across Idaho are standing in solidarity with the immigrant community for a day without immigrants.
It's not about not wanting to work today. It's about trying to show that the Hispanic community, the immigrant community, unauthorized or not, are everywhere and really making a positive impact.
Idaho immigrants contribute millions in taxes and support businesses across multiple industries. And that's the 411 on the 208. I'm Hunter Funk.
So you see, it's not all legislative stuff, but it is our job to kind of keep you informed about everything that is going on at the State House as best we can. Some days can be unpredictable. Last Tuesday, though, after one of those unpredictable days full of lawmaking mayhem, we said we would try to bring you, well, something different, some different news. All right, thank you very much. We'll try to do it again, maybe not so much on the legislature tomorrow. We'll see. Okay, we tried the next day, but we didn't quite deliver, according to Dale, because he texted us the next day on the 29th. Hey, I thought you said yesterday no government stuff. Tomorrow, maybe? Well, so not maybe. Thanks a lot. Well, okay, as I said, that was the next day. And while we did break up the monotony of lawmakers with the story of the Bear River Massacre that day, wasn't exactly an uplifting story, now was it? How about we do that today, though? I promise. No government stuff in this one. Hunter Funk caught up with an out-of-the-ordinary emotional support dog, a great one at that, at a primary care provider in Boise.
This is Duke. He just brings smiles to everybody's face.
The Duke fan club.
He loves everybody. He wants to hang out with them. He wants, pet me, love me, talk to me, just all of it. There's nobody he doesn't like.
This 170-pound puppy is an emotional support dog greeting patients at the Women's Health Associates office in Boise.
He's big in emotion. He's big in loving on people, and Great Danes and Mastiffs are known to be, great with children. They love people. He's a good boy.
Suzanne Rice is the doctor and Duke's dog mom.
It got to a point where on days that I'm in surgery, I don't bring him, and the staff is like, "Where's Duke?" Patients are, "Where's Duke?" And all of a sudden I'm like, he's really become part of the staff. And so I'm like, we need to get him a name tag.
2 to 3 times a week, Duke puts on his name tag and shows up for work.
Oh, it's nice to meet you.
Suzanne says seeing a doctor can be nerve-wracking, so Duke steps in, helping newer patients who don't know what to expect.
And so the patient goes from being all like, I'm nervous and what's going to happen, to, oh, look at that cute guy. Oh, he's a little bit nervous about me. Oh, come here, baby. Don't be nervous. I love dogs. And then they're talking, and he might lick their face or just, be sniffing their hand. And then he's like helping to calm their nerves before we even get into our part of the visit.
And when the kids come in, even they are asking,
"Where's that Duke? I want to see that Duke."
Though not all appointments are good ones. Suzanne says Duke hasn't experienced this just yet, but believes he can be a steady anchor amidst the bad news.
Nobody likes to deliver bad news, but I think patients would rather hear it from the person that they've been seeing and the plan. But then you have this big guy, and he just kind of looks at you and it's like, he's going to be okay. Just to give, even if it's a millimeter of extra hope and warmth of just going, okay, I just think it would make it better.
And she says it's creating an environment where people want to open up and have something to lean on. Duke is not a certified therapy dog yet. They're still waiting until he's 1 year old so he can be ready for his training. Therapy dogs, though, it's not a new thing in doctor's office spaces, but Brian, a Great Dane?
Yeah.
I mean, his back was up to my hip at that
huge.
point. I couldn't believe it.
And I say lapdog because I've experienced the Great Danes, and they do love to just sit on top of you and lean on you when they're just standing there, because it's like, that's a lot of weight. He's how big is he?
165 pounds, and then hind legs, I think 5'8" is what she said.
And he's not even a year old.
Yeah.
All right, that's awesome.
A lot more grown to go.
Having a good time. Thanks,
Yeah.
Hunter. So we know the Lunar New Year happened last week. Well, on day 4 of the Lunar New Year, also known as the Chinese New Year, Boise kicked off their own celebration at Jump in downtown. Idaho Chinese organization put it on and welcomed more than 3,000 people to Jump to celebrate and usher in the Year of the Snake. And snakes are meant to represent wisdom, intuition, creativity, plus good luck, fertility, and longevity. The theme for this year's celebration was unity, which is something we could all kind of use right now, considering our political climate. Photojournalist Jason Foster brings us the story and takes us to the celebration.
Today we're doing a Chinese New Year celebration.
It's a very big holiday.
We are having a Lunar New Year celebration and Jump today.
This is based on the Lunar New Year calendar.
A lot of people in China and other countries celebrate it.
Oh, it's a year of snake. So it's a year of snake.
So you can see a lot of artwork that has actually snakes in their painting.
So we actually usually do the celebration over 2 weeks. This is one of the biggest events we hold every year.
A lot of different activities and dances.
I love it when people come and they're like, yeah, I do a little drumming. I'm like, great, show me. Every child, when they reach a certain age, wants to learn about how they interact with the world and what they can influence, what they can control, where their power can take them. The first thing they do is they pick up, oh, I can do this. And then you start giving them rhythm. Rhythms become structure, and then pause. Structure becomes guidance, and then hit. And all of a sudden, through music, you're teaching these young kids how to pick up and receive and follow guidance from others.
This year, our theme is unity.
There are a lot of people here who aren't from Asian countries and they're here to learn and understand different cultures.
We're doing calligraphy and painting and food upstairs.
It's important for people to learn about other people's cultures because it allows growth, it allows for people to become more interconnected.
They've got performances with dance and music and costumes.
We have this youth art competition and some activities like mahjong going on in the corner.
We want to bring this happiness, prosperity to everyone.
The purpose of the art competition is to promote Chinese culture.
So that's why we're having this event, and we want to embrace everyone and having everyone's here and having fun.
Just something happy, something to promote the spirit of reunions, the spirit of prosperity, spirit of hope.
By living in Idaho, especially in Boise for 20 years, I always feel there's an opportunity for us to let the community to know more about our culture, not only the Chinese culture, right? There's so many countries in Asia celebrating Lunar New Year.
Because if we only just stay within our own cultures, we won't be able to learn about how different things are in different parts of the world. So it can help us grow as a people.
We're just so glad and thrilled that there are so many people from all different communities come and celebrate with us.
I've had a lot of fun today.
We're all humans. We're all here in the same community, and we want to celebrate together.
This is wild. Knew it was gonna snow. Told me it was gonna snow, but wow, did it snow.
Wow, did it snow in the mountains in particular? Yes, we have seen 2 to over 3 feet of snow, especially at the top of our ski resorts, places like Bogus Basin, over 40 inches from the last 3 days. We picked up just over 2 inches at the Boise airport. Most of the Treasure Valley this morning woke up to anywhere from 1 to 3 inches of fresh powder on the ground. Most of it already gone, at least here in our view of the connector in Boise. The connector itself is dry. Speaking of dry, it's been a really beautiful day in Twin Falls. Skies are clouding up now, but it's been sunny, mid-40s over in the Magic Valley. Snow has continued to fly off and on in the mountains and likely will continue through tonight into tomorrow, likely on into Wednesday. And while we've had a break in the wet weather for most of our Monday afternoon, this is what is starting to surge back in. That atmospheric river still turning the fire hose on eastern Oregon and now southwest Idaho. So we are seeing rain starting to move across Canyon County, reaching for Boise. So if you are heading out this evening, you will likely be dodging some raindrops. Be ready with the umbrella, the waterproof footwear, and the hooded jacket. The wet weather, at least this round, should let up around midnight. Temperatures actually warm during the evening and early morning hours. And then we have some warm winds coming in tomorrow. That will propel our temperatures to near 50 degrees here in the Treasure Valley. That is the peak of our temperatures this week. After that, a slow slide back down into the 30s by Friday, with periods of wet weather coming and going. Next best chance of snow here in the valley, I think it's late Thursday into Friday morning, maybe another inch or so for the Boise area.
All right, let's get to your comments. Got about a minute to go here. How about this one? Let's start with Shirley. The tax break that would help most Idahoans would be reducing the temporary. Let's start here, actually. While I understand your level of concern on the voter affidavit and the low use numbers, I would then ask, if it does pass, what would it hurt? All it would do is make our election process more secure. However, it is already secure. There's been never any proof presented that our elections are not secure. Kind of like that whole innocent until proven guilty. Why would you want to throw out some votes that are eligible? They just didn't bring their ID. All because you just want to avoid somebody voting that really wouldn't be able to vote in the first place. Sure seems like the Idaho Legislature spends a great deal of time solving issues that don't need solving. Imagine if that same energy were spent on actual problem, says Kim in Eagle. Let's see. State of House current law. Let's get rid of this one here. Let's go to the next one. I keep hearing that many school buildings need to be repaired, yet there's a surplus that legislators want to give back. I don't understand their priorities, says Sheila. It's a running question, Sheila.